Hi, everyone. It's such an honor to be a part of this panel session. And what I wanted to do for my conversation was to talk about an activity that I did with my students that opened up our discussion on disabilities in regard to public speaking. Now, this activity was done in my advanced public speaking course, but it was a modification on an activity that I had done in my fundamentals course. Because what I wanted to do for the modified version was to talk to my students about disabilities in public speaking, right? Because I feel as if most of the time we take a very able-bodied approach to public speaking, but I wanted to combat that by having my students think about, okay, how do you give a public address or a public speech if somebody in the audience has a disability, or if you yourself have a disability? What does that look like? What does that mean? And how do we effectively think through and problem solve through those quote unquote barriers? And so what I'm going to present to you today is that activity, as well as the debrief that I had with my students afterwards. So I'm going to share my screen with you all right now. So what you should see now is a PowerPoint of 3 different slides that I used in this activity, what I called the listening activity. Because what I had my students do is I paired everybody up in the class, so it was a partnered activity. And I had one student face this screen, or this being projected on a larger computer screen in the classroom. And then I had their partner face the back wall. And then I told them, I said, okay, your objective as the person facing the screen, I'm going to show you an image, and your objective is to tell the person facing the wall what's on the, like how to draw what is on the screen, what you see, essentially. And those were the only instructions I gave at the beginning. And so then I said, okay, but now I'm going to pass around specific instructions to you all as individuals. And so before I even showed them these images here, I went around to each person in the room and I passed out slips of paper with these instructions on it. So a slip of paper that I would hand a student might have, you can only ask questions, or you must squint your eyes the entire time. Or some of my favorites were, you have to wear noise canceling out headphones, and you cannot use any writing utensil. Now, some of these I use strategically. So this one where it says you cannot use any writing utensil, I only gave to students who were facing the wall because they were the ones doing the drawing. And so once I passed around each of these, I allowed the students to look at them. And then I said, okay, now here we go. On your mark, get set, go. And I would put up, let's say, this first image. So the students then had to communicate what their images looked like while also considering the different instructions that I had given them, where, you know, they couldn't speak, or they had to squint, or they had to wear the noise canceling out headphones. And this created a very enjoyable experience for me, because it was very interesting watching students grapple with, how am I supposed to complete this activity if I don't even have a writing utensil? One of my students got very creative and used a Cheeto from their snack that they had brought with them to class. I thought that that was pretty ingenious, but you know, it was very interesting to watch students grapple with these concepts. And I, you know, at the very end of the activity, you can see this last image, but at the very end of the activity, I engaged my students in a conversation about, you know, what was hard about that? What was easy about it? What challenged you? And then thinking about, okay, how do we keep these things in mind as we move forward with our own public speeches, considering that some people in our audience may have these disabilities? So I hope that this activity debrief was helpful for you. I'm open to any questions about it, but this is a way that I introduce critically thinking about disabilities into my classroom and encouraging my students not to take an able-bodied approach to public speaking. Thank you.